Welcome into another edition of the Varsity Podcast. Justin, Barney, Sponge Franklin coming to you in a weird kind of week. Both of us on vacation most of the week, so we're doing it over Zoom the day before Thanksgiving. And several teams from our area still practicing on Thanksgiving. Sponge, you and I will be eating on Thanksgiving. We got a bunch of teams still practicing, shoot for state semifinal berths in this week's round.
Yeah, no, definitely. We've been talking how the goal each season, one of the big goals that you always put on the aspect list of getting to that Thanksgiving Day practice, getting to that, third round of the playoffs to, ultimately give your chance, to set yourself up for a state title run. So if you're practicing on tomorrow morning, then, you've had a good season. And like I said, we've got a couple teams that are basically going to be participating in some Thanksgiving Day practices. So, I think a couple of guys can maybe make a run here.
Yeah, it's an interesting week. Week 3 to me is always kind of the separator before we go into the matchups for this week. Let's look back at what happened in week 2 of the playoffs. A tough go for some of our teams. The big one to me was Oakleaf 31, Nice 14. Nice has been our number 2 team a chunk of the second half of the season, but Oakleaf has now gone through 2 of the area expected heavyweights this year. Mandarin 17-14 in week 1. And then absolutely smacked Nice around 31-14 in week 2. So they're heading on to the third round. Niceville beat Ponte Vedra in 1-5A in overtime, 21-20. So the Sharks go for a 2-point conversion and miss it at the end. So they lose an OT heartbreaker there. Fleming Island season comes to an end, 16-13 over Tallahassee Lincoln. That was a good game. Lincoln was up 16-0. Fleming Island came back in that game and made it close. So they were out. St. Augustine, a big win over White, 38-14. I was at that game. St. Aug looked good. Offense looked good. Ed White's offense just could not do anything against that St. Augustine defense. Raines absolutely put the beat down on Wakulla, 63-7. Sponge. That was an obscene beating. All those points in the first half too. So just crazy. BK 36-26 over Godby. I picked that one. I knew BK, just the way they've been rolling. They've won 6 in a row. Derek Heidemann just on a tear. So they're moving on. Bowles 35, Walton 0. No surprise there. Newberry beats Bradford 34-19. End of the Tornadoes season comes against Newberry, the only team to beat Bradford this year. Beat them in the regular season as well. UC 24-21 over Providence. Ends the Stallions' best season, a round short of the regional final. Trinity 28, McClay 21. No surprise there. Williston 28, Fort White 19, and Union County 28. Pahokee 18. So, Sponge, your thoughts from round 2 of the postseason?
Yeah, obviously the big one off the bat, Nice going down. They had been undefeated. They had, kind of dominated their schedule for the most part. I know you and I, when we talked last week, what I said was that for Oakleaf to win that game, they were going to have an offensive performance like they did against like a Bowls, where they just score a lot of points. And the offense came out and played awesome. And then defensively, they played pretty well as well. They played good complementary ball. They pulled the upset big time. It's kind of like one of those things where you're like, okay, I feel like maybe Oakleaf was a little more battle tested in a sense, not to say that, Nice was playing, just ducks, but when you get to the playoffs, man, it's all about, you got to play both sides. You got to be able to play good offense and good defense. And, on full display, Oakleaf did what they needed to do to win that game, and they did it kind of in a big way. I think more so the number was a little more surprising. I felt like Oakleaf could play with them, and Oakleaf's been kind of that. They surprised us, coming out the gate week 1, when they beat Riverside. Ultimately they've had a heck of a season, and I think they can keep it going. They got the good momentum going right now. I don't know how far it can take them, but can they beat Buchholz this Friday night will be big.
I think they've gone through Mandarin, they've gone through Nice. Nice was the number 1 team in the entire state, which to me, I had never understood with the FHA, the max preps points. I don't know how Nice, no disrespect to Nice at all. They've been one of the best stories in the state this entire year. But when I look at teams like Cocos and the Chaminades and stuff, I don't know how that metric works, because you're talking a team like that against any team from out of our area, Raines and Nice included. I don't know how our teams could actually kind of be over one of those heavyweights like that. But anyway, that's another conversation for another day. And yeah, you're right. Oakleaf has been playing really on a different level to me much of this season, and we saw it in that Bulls game. I mean, I think you said last week if they had any chance of beating Nice, they had to play like they did in that 57-50 loss to Bulls. They did just that. Big jumped on them early and just kind of kept that going.
Yeah.
So really good season for Christopher Foy, and the Knights just year two for him there, and only the second time Oakleaf has been in the third round of the playoffs. Of course, they did that under Derek Chipoletti way back in the day. They made it to the third round during a 12-1 season. So we'll see if they can keep that going. They're going to Gainesville Buchholz on Friday night, a game that I do not see that Oakleaf. I mean, they have a shot in it. I don't see this as being like a lopsided matchup by any stretch.
Yeah, and it's because of that offense. The offense can, do it in like they're very well balanced. They can throw the ball, they can lean on the run, so that they can play, balanced offense, which always can give a defense fits when you can't like key in on one thing. And if you, try to pick your poison on stopping one, they can kind of exploit the other by, being good in that area as well. So, Buchholz is not the juggernaut of before. So, they're playing with a lot of confidence, obviously beating, a team like Mandarin. Yeah, depleted Mandarin, but they got the win after losing to them a couple weeks ago in the regular season. Then they get the big win, against Nice. So, like, can you carry that momentum into this week? And, who knows what can happen? Like I say, it's the playoffs. Crazy things happen. As long as they keep, playing the way they're playing, don't have a letdown, which, you just can't do that in this, stage of the season. You just can't do that. So, like I say, I kind of like them to maybe get the win Friday night against Buchholz.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. I don't think this is Oakleaf going on the road to play the monster Buchholz of the past, the Buchholz teams that have just ransacked local teams come playoff time. I definitely think Buchholz, although Buchholz has played well this season, new coach and everything, so it's different. They graduated a lot of talent. I mean, there's no Miles Graham back there anymore, sending out some haymakers to the Bobcats. So I do think this is a winnable game for Oakleaf. St. Augustine looked really good to me last week against Ed White. They probably had a chance to even win that game a little bit bigger than they did. Ed White just didn't have the offense to stay with St. Augustine. 38-14 Yellow Jackets. I thought Trenton Jones, Carl Jenkins Jr. has been out for the last couple games in the playoffs due to an injury. Maybe he's back this game. He got banged up against Mandarin and hadn't played the last 2 weeks. Hopefully he's back in this game because he is a senior. But Trenton Jones, man, he looked phenomenal last week. 3 touchdowns. He caught a touchdown, a beautiful touchdown right over Patterson in the back of the end zone. Great play on a future D1 corner. Took the opening kickoff of the game back 85 yards for a touchdown. Also had another touchdown catch. So great game from Trenton Jones, filling in for Carl Jenkins in his absence. Even with 2 receivers instead of the big 3, I think St. Augustine's still a pretty good pick to beat Choctawhatchee Friday night.
Yeah, I'm not Choctaw. Just again, they're one of those panhandle teams that they're a good program, but I feel like when you get to this stage, I feel like St. Augustine has the juice on offense, even without Carl Jenkins Jr. Lachlan Hewlett, Trenton Jones, Samari Wingo. Those guys are enough to, carry the load if even Carl needs to sit out another week to get healthy. So I just think that, Choctaw's always one of those teams that can play good defense and, hope to hang around a game, maybe run the football a little bit. They're that typical like brute panhandle team. And, St. Augustine's kind of handled in the last couple of years. A lot of the Jacksonville teams have kind of handled them when they get to this stage in the season. That late third round, third round, when they match up against them. So I definitely like St. Aug Friday night, definitely being a home game, all that good stuff. So I feel like St. Augustine definitely moves on. And, now it gets down to the brass tacks when you get to the Final Four. Can you get to the state championship?
Yeah, before we get into our all-local matchups, the last one I want to talk, 2 more. I want to talk about Union County goes to Boot Hill, plays Madison County. These 2 guys are well known to each other. Madison's always dancing around. Winner goes to the rural state championship game. I think Union's got a good chance at winning that one. And then Bowles goes on the road to Gadsden County. This is the 4th playoff meeting between these 2 teams, including a few years ago here. Actually, it was a 10-7 overtime win for Bowles. I think this is going to be a tough game for Bowles, but I think them having so many of their guys back and healthy. Emmett Gresman back middle of the season, he had a leg injury that looked like he was going to be back this year. He's back. I mean, Burrows is back, Chase Collier's back, Fordham is back. I mean, you've got all these guys that were banged up at some point or another, missed time, or were just not healthy, fully back for the playoffs. And you've seen that the first two rounds of the playoffs, two shutouts, and it's just been typical Bowls. They've not, I mean, they've played in the state semifinals every year under Matt Toblin in his previous 5 seasons. I think they win. I do think this is going to be more of a challenging game for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Bowles, getting all those guys back healthy is huge. I feel like they're obviously better than Gaston, just because of their playmakers. The Nine Burrows of the world, the Colliers of the world. Ethan Drum, I think, is on a mission to prove himself. I know he's been playing pretty good ball this season. He's got the experience. He's gotten to play in some playoff games. In the past 2 to 3 years. He's gotten some experience here and there. This is his full-time start of the a full season, but I feel like he's ready to go. I feel like Bowles is again, this is typical Bowles ball. They're going to go first 3 rounds and be in, and then it comes down again, like we said before. After this, how can you win that Final Four game to get to a state title, and then can you ultimately win the state championship? So I think they're in prime position to where we figured and thought they'd be. So now you just got to go handle and take care of business. As far as going to Boot Hill, that's a whole nother story. That's a tough place to play. But hey, let's get it. Let's do it. Let's go, Union County.
Yeah, I think they've got a chance to do it, and the winner of that one would get either Williston or Hawthorne in that rural championship game. And that's just one portion of the bracket. There's the other side of the rural black bracket too, that open division. But I think it's a tough. This is definitely Union County's toughest. I'm going to say even their most difficult game of the season, even though they lost to Chiefland in the regular season. I do think Madison County, wherever you play Madison County, but especially at Boot Hill, is always a challenging game for whomever is having to go out there and do it. Now, finally, we'll talk about our 2 local games. Two really, really good matchups. UC going to Trinity in Region 1, 1A, and I should say that's for the right to get absolutely starched by Chaminade at some point in the possible playoff semifinals.
Or even Clearwater Central Catholic, because
yeah,
they're a really good ball club too. I mean, that's the team that has been the kind of the other thorn in everybody else's side just to get to the state championship game. So I think it's obviously Chaminade's going to win the state title regardless. It's even against CCC. So it's more so of, can you get to the game to go get blown out, I guess, in a sense. But I like what UC's done in these last couple of weeks. They kind of got it rolling here and feeling good. Trinity kind of obviously they had the forfeit win, so they didn't get to play in that first round. And then they kind of let McClay hang around a little bit more so than I would have, liked. But they got the win. It's time to move on. So now it comes down to can those young playmakers make plays for Trinity? Running and passing. With the dual quarterback. They rotate the quarterbacks. Can that young defense step up? I feel like maybe Trinity has the better young talent, but like I say, UC's a tough out. So it's gonna be a heck of a ball game. Luckily, it's at Trinity, so they're going to the home field advantage. So I'd probably say Trinity wins in a tight one. If I was gonna, if I'm picking it.
You say you're laying money down on that when you're taking Trinity.
That's it, baby. Let's go TC. Come on now. I got to be biased for that. You coached at Trinity. I graduated from UC. And when you look at these 2 teams, so full disclosure there, but when you look at those 2 teams, very similar this year to me, both UC and Trinity. UC was young, beaten up, having to replace Stuckey and Alford. He was finally healthy this year after last year. And then you're sticking in young guys. I mean, sophomore, juniors asked to play big roles. You played a tough schedule. And you played at Newberry early on in the season, played a kind of weird out-of-area schedule for a lot of games. But UC has really kind of found its momentum. That's why, Providence, as good as Providence was, I think UC was just a step above. But really, to me, UC, Josh Bruton, the big running back, he's got like 18 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he killed Providence in the regular season. Another big game for him last week. So the running game has gotten going. Alford has finally been healthy. When he's on the field, he's a playmaker. He's a difference maker. Yeah.
And you've just kind of gotten that momentum. And UC Trinity for the 3rd year in a row, these guys meet in the postseason. 2 years ago it was for a right in the state to get in the state semifinals like this one. Last year it was the first round of the playoffs. Trinity won, of course, and reached the state semifinals. But Trinity's kind of had the upper hand in recent years. But I do think this is more of a level playing field due to
Yeah.
Trinity's youth and inexperience, so to speak. And then you see in terms of a lot of its youth as well.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like I say, that's where you're going to find out. Like I say, where the rubber meets the road is which group of young skills, take it to that next level to get that win to move on. And like I say, UC has definitely. I think part of the thing that we kind of slept on, not talked about as much as UC, kind of like you said, because of the schedule. They hadn't had a lot of local matchups. They've had, like you said, a weird schedule. So we haven't necessarily like honed in on what they've been doing. But as you've seen, the latter half of the season here, where they've gone down the stretch run, they've turned out some good performances. They've got wins, and they're, like I say, they've got some things rolling in the right direction. Trinity, they had that tough schedule early on. They kind of found themselves, had some, lighter schedule late in the year, and picked up some momentum, picked up some wins. So, like I say, I think both teams are kind of, like you said, in that same realm of where they are. So now it just comes down to, who makes those plays Friday night, and who doesn't, and what player steps up to make it a win for either team. So I still think I like Trinity just because I'm on I can't pick against them, so it is what it is. But I just feel like they've had a little bit tougher challenge schedule wise, and they actually they banged with some guys for they banged early in the year with the Reigns, they banged early
Mm-hmm.
with the Bowls. But what's crazy is those games feel like eons ago, man. So it's just
Big time.
it's like where are you at now? And so it'll be interesting to see, who comes to play Friday night for sure.
And the biggest one, and I'm with you. I think it's gonna be a close and banger on Friday between those two. And then the big local one, the bigger schools, Bishop Kenny going to the graveyard, trying to slow down Reigns. Man, what a game! Derek Heidemann has thrown 11 touchdown passes and 2 playoff wins for Bishop Kenny. They won 6 in a row. Big win last week at Godby. And then on the flip side, TJ Cole has thrown 11 touchdowns in the last 2 playoff wins for Reigns. And these two teams both have been hot. Reigns has been our number one team in the Super 10 for the bulk of the year. Can Bishop Kenny stay with Reigns for any kind of sort of time? I tend to think that BK may be able to bang with them for a quarter or so, but I think Reigns is too good on everywhere on the field to stay with a for Bishop Kenny to stay with it for a full 48. I just don't think
Yeah.
the secondary is crazy. That defensive line, I mean, King Massey is insane. Butler, Zion, it's just Simon is just fantastic. So many guys on that Reigns defense. And don't even talk about the offense. I mean, you're talking the embarrassment of riches at receiver for Reigns and Coach Donovan Madden. Cole is phenomenal. He's got 37 touchdown passes. DeAndre Johnson has got 47, and that's been kind of the leader in the clubhouse in terms of the area history. And that was DeAndre Johnson when he won Mr. Football. He had 47 touchdown passes. So TJ Cole has been on that pace. He's 63% completion percentage. No, by the way, he's got 8 rushing touchdowns too. In the backfield with him, Tadarius running the ball well. Receiver, you got Adron and Lampkins and everybody just catching up a storm. And then the defense, to me, I just think Reigns is the most complete team in our area. And Bishop Kenny's been hot, no doubt. You won 6 in a row. But I'm worried about the Bishop Kenny that was in a one possession game with Westside or lost to Parker.
Exactly.
That's the Bishop Kenny that I'm worried about showing up on Friday night. And I think they're a different team now than when that happened. But to me, this Reigns football team, and I don't care if you were playing somebody else on Friday night, I do think Reigns has just been on another level this season than any other team.
Yeah, no, like I say, you summed it up perfect. I don't think Bishop Kenny has a shot in what. Like, I think that Reigns is, like you say, on a mission. They got the better personnel. They got the better offense and defensive lines. They've got the better skills. They basically have, like, they check all the boxes on all the boards to where they have everything their way. For them to even make it a game, they'd have to turn the ball over and just play poorly, which I just don't think they're going to do. I think this is a Reigns name your score game. I think they have no problem. I think it's moving on to the next. And, I think they're on a mission to get to the state championship game, and then it comes down to can they beat Miami Northwestern or whoever's coming out of the South. Um, like I say, Reigns has been playing some ball. Like that Wakulla game, when you saw a score 63-0 at halftime, you're like, good night, Irene. I mean, it was like, whoa. So I have a feeling it could be something like that again. Bishop Kenny's going to, like I say, they're going to have to play out of their mind. The perfect game, but I just don't think they got enough to hang with them. And so, like I say, it's been a great year. Definitely, beating Godby is a big win, and getting to this point in the season. But yeah, what scares me would be like, yeah, you played that game against Parker and Westside, so that's kind of who you are in a sense. Now, have you changed from that? Like, you'd have to drastically be like that. We can't have any of that coming out. And I just think that Reigns is just too good to let that happen. So, like I said, I think Reigns rolls, and it's on to the next again. Take it 1 week at a time. Don't worry about Miami Northwestern or whoever's coming out of that South bracket, and just take it 1 week at a time, and we'll see what happens. But I like the chances for some of our local boys. Like we talked about it all season. Like who's really got a shot. So I think we've got some Final Four contenders, and then so we should be talking ball here in the next week or two.
Yeah, we know we'll at least have two. We have two all local regional finals, so we'll have a representative in 3A and we'll have a representative in 1A, being the all local regional final. So I'm with you. I think Bishop Kenny would have to play another worldly game. I think Reigns would have to turn the ball over and play completely unorthodox. And the thing is, I mean, TJ Cole has not thrown an interception since week 6, which is crazy to me when you're throwing with that volume of passes and teams just aren't doing it. And that goes to his protection. He's got a good offensive line. His receivers, he's got 5 guys he can throw to just all the time. And he's not trying to force things. And he's comfortable back there. We had him in the studio a couple weeks ago before the playoffs started. And he's just sharp. He's on point. He said it was just, they were on a mission this year. And you've really seen that in how they've been able to kind of handle things.
Yeah,
in the playoffs.
It's so easy. It's so easy for them. It's crazy. Going back all the way to week 1, that Bulls game, our Friday night game, the very first opening night, it was just like it's like they were toying with Bulls, and they were messing around, and he threw a pick in the end zone, or they didn't convert, in the red zone. But it's like they had so many yards, and they were just kind of like that. That was just getting their footing right, and then like it's just gradually gotten better as the years gone on. It's just like he's like literally, just dropping back and just, throwing it wherever he wants to, just, dropping dimes in a bucket, just, all over the place. So like he's
got 6 picks all year. 2 of them came in week 1. So it's been, he's been that's the type of season he's been. All right, Sponge, I'm going to throw him by you here and maybe not give you score questions, but how many teams will we have? Oakleaf, Buchholz. Who's moving on?
I'm taking the Oakleaf Knights, baby. Let's go.
Right. So we got them. Choctaw, St. Aug.
I got the St. Augustine boys. Come on.
All right. BK Reigns. Okay. UC Trinity.
I got TC.
All right. That's 4. And Union Madison.
I'm going to go Madison County on that one. And I got Bowles.
Right, so you're saying
I got Bowles over Gadsden.
And Bowles over Gadsden. So you got 5 local teams, 5. So Oakleaf moving on, St. Aug, Reigns, Bowles, Trinity. And TC. Okay, so you got 5 of 6 moving on, and I'm probably in that category. I may pick Union County, but I'm not sure. I definitely would not be surprised to see all 6 move on, and I wouldn't be out of the realm of craziness to see 4 move on. It's just third round of the playoffs can get a little bit wonky, and I think this is always the separator for area teams. But yeah, that is, man, I can't believe we're already on Thanksgiving, third round of the playoffs. Crazy. And it is here, man. We are talking state semifinals next week, and I can't believe it's already here. Weather started getting a little cooler, and Sponge, it's there, and knocking on the door. We're having some state semifinal matchups to talk about next week. Can you believe it?
It's that time of year. Let's do it, man. Like I say, I'm excited for these ball clubs, to get to that point. This is, like I say, this is coaching in these games are like always, super fun to coach on that Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, having that Thanksgiving practice. Like it's that time of the year where you're one of, like you say, 5-6 teams that are still practicing, that are still getting ready to play a game, that where teams can come watch you because you're the only game in town. So it's a big deal. And this is, like I say, this is what you play for. This is what it's all about. And like I say, I'm excited for all these ball clubs. And like I say, hopefully we've got more teams to talk about in the next week or two.
I think we will, man. And also next week, early signing period starts next week as well. So we got a lot of.
What's Jamie going to do? What's Jamie going to do?
Yeah, that's the kind of the hot question.
I need him to go right here.
Well, that's kind of, I think that's the big story next. Does Jamie French wind up signing with Texas, or does he flip with the Gators' momentum? And anything's possible. That's why it's tough for me to get too worked up early on when kids announce their commitment.
Totally.
Mid-season or in the summer. It's like, come on, it's so much stuff left to play out, and it's difficult for me to get too fired up about these early year commitments because.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw Tramel Jones, who had been a diehard to Florida State, flip. And, I mean, will Solomon Thomas still go to Florida State? That's another big question.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think Solomon and Jamie are two stories worth watching next week. We've got a lot of kids signing next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'll have a lot of –
like my buddy always says, I don't believe anything until they sign on that dotted line. So it's like they can talk this, talk that. They could commit here, commit there. Like, I don't care what they say. I don't care what they said in September, because this is the flip season, as they call it. So, so until they sign and send those fax letters into, the university of where their choice is, it's who knows what's going to happen. So, yes, early signing day definitely is a big deal. And like I say, we've got a few prospects, obviously, on the First Coast here that, who knows if they flip to, certain schools where it'll be, a big deal. So definitely something to watch out for next week as well.
Yeah. So it will be interesting. Tramel Jones, the first, if he signs next week with the Gators, be the first local kid quarterback to head to Florida since Tebow in 2006. So maybe some good stigma right there to follow. So anyway, that'll do it for a Thanksgiving edition, Black Friday edition, whatever you want to call it. Version of the Varsity 4 podcast will be coming to you next week from back in the studio. So thanks for joining us. And even a day later this week for a Varsity 4 podcast for Sponge Franklin, Justin Barney. We'll talk to you next week.